Hi, welcome back to our lesson 7 in this C++ learning journey. So in this lesson 7, we had started the topic that is classes. So in the previous two videos, we got the idea of how the classes works, and we learned about the constructors, destructors, member functions, and member variables as well. And also we learned about the access specifiers as well. So in this video, we are going to have a look at the useful concept that is called getters and setters. And if you are studying in university, most of the time what they ask you in your practice problem or your question is that use accessors or mutators. So accessors is the getter and mutator is the setter. So they always ask to use getters and setters to access the values and modify the member variables. So in this video, we are going to learn the concept of that accessor and mutators, or also known as getters and setters. So let's start our tutorial. So we have different three access specifiers like private, public, and protected, and we know the use and purpose for each access specifier as well. So let me start with the private. So if I have a private section in my class in which I have two variables, let's say var1 integer and let's say character var2, okay? So we have got one integer variable and another character variable. So if I tell you that to access these values or to set these values, what are the ways? What are the possible ways? So one way to set these values or to set these member variables, as we studied in our last tutorial, that was the constructor. Before that, we used member functions to access these values. Now here is another way that is much cleaner and also much used way to access values and to modify these values. That is called getter. So what you will do, you will have to define some functions in public. Okay, so first thing is going to be the get function. So the get function will have the return data type for which you are using it. So for example, if I am using for integer variable 1, I will have integer data type as return, and then I will have a get name, and then I'll say get variable 1. Okay, and within this I will return this get variable 1. So what will happen actually, that you guys already know that how the functions work, that it will return some value, and what will be that value? That will be the value of this variable 1. So for example, if the initial value of this variable 1 is 0 and this is a let's say a, okay, this is the initial values for these. So what will happen now in main function, if I create an object of this test class like t1, and if I write c out t1 dot get variable 1, so what will happen, that the value of this variable 1 will be printed. So now what you learned, that with the help of getters, we can access our private members without even mentioning their name in our main function. So we didn't access them directly in our main function. Instead, we used getters. So this is the concept of getter, that it is the accessor. It accesses the values. It can access the private members of our class. Okay, so this was the basic idea of getter. Now let's say you want to modify the value of this private member. Let's say you don't want 0, you want another number like 10, 100 or 50, 21, whatever you want. So what you will use? You will use a setter. So what is the purpose of setter? So it is a void, so it has no returning data type, and you will write set, you will say variable 1, and you will receive a parameter. Okay, so this is going to be of the same data type to which you are initializing or assigning the value. So I'll write here that integer a. Then within this, I'll write that var1 is equals to a. Now what will happen here, that if I call t1 dot set variable 1, and if I pass it 10, now let's have a look at the output. Now, as you guys can see, our output has been changed from 0 to 10. So this is the basic idea and basic concept of getters and setters, that we can use getters to access our private members and print them. So get represent the word, for example, printing, accessing the value. One. Another thing is setting the variables, like you can say variable 1 is equals to a, so you can have your own choice value as well. So the setter can be used for this purpose. Now let's build a calculator, a simple calculator with the help of these getters and setters, so you will get more practice and get more idea about these concepts. So first of all, we will write two variables. So integer variable 1. So instead of variable 1, I will write it as num1. Okay. And then after that, we will have num2. So we will initialize them by 0, that if there is nothing received by a user, then initialize them with 0 value, because we don't want any raw values here. After that, we will have a character. So character initially will be an empty character. Okay. So now what we will write here is that get num1 and return num1. Okay. After that, we will design the same getter for the num2 as well. So we will copy this and we will paste it over here and just rename it with num2. So there you go, we have num2 as well. Now we will copy this, we have already copied, we will paste here and we will write the character. Why? Because we are designing it for the operator. So this is character, and for character we will use the word operator. Operator. And operator is a keyword, so we will just use OPER and get OPER. Okay, so we have OPER and then return OPER. Okay, now let's have setters. So set num1 and we will receive a and initialize num1. And one more thing, we should use the float data type. Okay, so here we have a float data type, and let's have a float data type here as no, not here, but here. Float and float here as well. Now let's have these same setters for the other variables as well. So set num1, instead of which we will write num2 here as well. And after that we will have set OPER, OPER, and instead of int we will receive character, and instead of integer here we will receive float, and we will write float here as well. Okay, now let's write OPER. Alright, so we have our class. So let me give you a quick walkthrough of what we did so far. So here first of all we have three private members that are num1, num2 and operator. So we have kept them private so we cannot access them directly within our main function or anywhere if I want to access them. Now we have getters, so the purpose of getters is to return the values of these member variables. Now get num1 will return num1, get num2 will return num2, and get operator will return the operator. Now the purpose of setters is that if we want to initialize these values or assign some values of our own choice, so we will use setters. Okay, so instead of accessing them directly, we will use getters and setters. Now let's have a look how can we do this. Now first of all we will create an object. Okay, now we will write cout, enter the first number. So the direct method is t1 dot access the number. So as you guys can see, they are marked red. That means that we can't access them directly. So what we will do, we will write some variable like integer or temporary variable like this. Okay, and instead of integer temporary. Okay, the first thing is that we have to take input from the user and then pass that input to this setter. Okay, so for that purpose, I will have a float, a temporary variable, and then I will write that c in temp. So what will happen that we will take input from the user and store it within our temp. After that, what we will do that we will pass this temp value to our setter. So we will call it as t1 dot set num1. Now the num1 will be set with a value of temp. After that, we will call the this function, this text line again, and just replace the first by second, and we will say take input again and store it in the temporary, because that value has been sent to the member variable, so we can reuse this and override the previous value within our temp. So set num2. So we have num2 here as well, and we will pass our temp again. Okay, now we have received values with the help of these setters, and we have stored it within our num1 and num2. Now let's take an operator here. So we will write a character temp2, temp1 let's say, and we will say cout, enter the operator. So a best way of doing it is going to be between these two. So we will do it here. Okay, so it will look much more better. All right, so we will have an operator here and then take input like c in and store it within our temp1. Okay, now we will pass this to our set operator, and within the operator we will write this temp1. Okay, so far what we did that we got input from the user and we passed those inputs as parameters to these setters. Now with the help of these getters, what we can do is that we can perform multiplication, addition, etc. So what we will do here is that we will write switch, and we will say t1 dot get operator. So what it will return is the character value to our switch. Now on the basis of that character value, if the case is plus, let's say the case is plus, then we write that cout sum is equals to t1, we will write it as t1 dot get num1 plus t1 dot get num2. Okay, and let's test this first case first of all, then we will move on to the other one as well. All right, just let's run this program. Let's see what happens. All right, so let's enter our first number. Let's say 10. The operator should be plus because we have only defined it for plus, and 20. And the sum is equals to 30. Yes, and it is working perfectly fine. So we will just make our code much more better as well, better looking. So what we will write some equal signs here. Now let's define it for our multiplication as well. So copy and paste it over here, and what we will do is that we will write multiplication, and and instead of plus, what we will do here is multiplication. So you can make your own calculator as well, and this is going to be your practice and your task, that you should make the whole calculator out of this getters and setters method. Until now, I will just do it until the multiplication just for the testing purpose, and the default value, let's say the default case would be cout invalid. Okay, now let's run our program. Okay, so the first number is 23. This operator should be multiplication, and the second number is 2. Okay, so we have got 46, so it's working perfectly good. And then let's enter something else. Let's say 20, and we will enter a curl bracket, and then we will enter 89. So an invalid character. So yes, it is working perfectly fine, and I hope you guys got the basic idea of how the getters and setters work, and what can be the possible purpose for using getters and setters, and also known as mutators and accessors as well. So I'll meet you guys in the next video, where we will learn more about our classes as well. So until then, bye.